Frappuccino in hand and my mom at my side, we were nearing the summer apparel section to pick out a bathing suit for a pool party I was hosting later that week. And next to the shorts and skirts was a big, blown-up image of a model styling a bikini. I remember her stopping to take it in and even calling me back to come admire the shot. She couldn't believe what she was seeing. A medium-sized model, not hiding her cellulite and stretch marks, hyperpigmentation along her inner thighs, unshaven legs, arms, and stomach, no sucking in, no crazy angles to produce different results, and no editing out rolls or saggy skin. Just a beautifully raw masterpiece. To me, this was normal. I really thought nothing of it. But to my mother, who's been fed nothing but the traditional size XXS, precisely shaven, even skin tone, flawless image of perfection her entire life, this was revolutionary. This got me thinking about how wildly different my peers and I are growing up from our parents, from any other generation really. We consume two completely separate worlds of information at a rate faster than ever before. The innovation or evolution of this new generation began in 2020 when the world was first put on pause for what would persist for nearly 2 years. We were confined to the constraints of our homes day after day until it all blurred together. But we somehow managed to become more connected than ever before, leading to the most rapid and impactful exchange of beliefs, opinions, and ideas that the world has ever seen. A bunch of teenagers and some young adults coming together to have discussions on the things our parents never talked about, or sometimes couldn't dare bring up. Making 60-second videos on TikTok, an app meant for some quick laughs, somehow jump-started global movements, created safe spaces for underrepresented groups, and normalized subjects that were dismissed or criticized in older generations, such as body positivity. And now today, nearly 2 years later, we're seeing more diverse representation than ever before, which, relating back to the story of my mother, is quite foreign to most older generations, and can either elicit positive or negative responses from them. An example is the multitude of responses to the Black Lives Matter movements that really started to gain attention in the summer of 2020. I argue that the rebirth and transformation of my generation started there, when a global uproar about human rights attempted to change our country's narrative. I remember logging onto TikTok every day and literally consuming nothing but protests, news reports, and educational clips that taught me more about my country's racist and oppressive roots than any teacher ever has. For the first time in many teenagers' lives, we were not only a part of an important conversation, but we were given a platform to speak on, one that we could use to reach millions of people in an instant. I felt a sense of community amongst my Black peers, stronger than ever before. I participated in the movements, as much as a quarantined 14-year-old could, posting paragraphs, educating my followers on recent protests or victims of police brutality, promoting Black creators, and having conversations with others online. Although me posting an Instagram story for my 400-something followers wasn't enough to bring back the life of Breonna Taylor or George Floyd, it still made a statement, no matter how big or small it was. It said that I wasn't too young or too naive to recognize the issues plaguing our society, and neither I nor the millions of other kids doing the exact same thing were too young to fight for change. This was merely the beginning of the human and social rights movements that caught the world's attention and started a wave of activism, progression, and critical but uncomfortable conversations that quickly cascaded across other minority groups. The door began to open for other discussions that had been put on the back burner for too long. One of these topics that caught the attention of the nation and sparked major controversy, and one of the biggest things that I believe my generation has normalized that truly sets us apart from others, is the newfound open discussions surrounding the LGBTQ+ community. In fact, just hearing me say LGBTQ+ has probably already either set off a whirlwind of positive or negative thoughts in your minds. After all, gay marriage was only legalized in all 50 states 7 years ago, meaning that many of you sitting here now or watching this later may very well have been in opposition to that law passed on June 26, 2015. Because up until recently, up until my generation, love is love was somehow refuted. Conversations around pronouns, identity, representation, that was out of the question. But today, 7 years later, it's more likely than not to see someone's pronouns in their Instagram bio. Nobody cares if there's a gay couple at a school dance. It's more likely to see pride flags strung up throughout a city. And although this doesn't apply for every school or every region of the country, there will likely always be discrimination towards marginalized groups. It's hard to deny massive steps have been made in the right direction. This change can also be observed in the advancement of queer representation in media. It began with your typical heteronormative films where the gay lead's entire experience is centered around coming out, and eventually evolved into series where characters just happen to be gay, and their love is celebrated through a non-heteronormative lens. This increase in diverse representation is extending to all realms of the entertainment industry, and is slowly but surely including more transgender people, disabled people, people of color, the list goes on. Representation is critical for young members of the LGBTQ+ community to feel secure in their identities and secure in expressing them. Gender roles and stereotypes are among the countless controversial discussions surrounding this community. Recently, less and less people have been conforming to the binary notions of gender, especially people around my age. One of my favorite ways in which this can be observed is in the evolution of fashion, in which the idea of gender fluidity has become much more widely embraced. One of the most well-known examples of gender nonconformity in fashion would have to be famous singer-songwriter Harry Styles. However, celebrities of all races, sexualities, and gender identities have contributed to the shift in fashion and gender roles overall. Some of my favorite include Lil Nas X, Janelle Monáe, Billy Porter, Kristen Stewart, Jaden Smith, Amanda Stenberg, and Bretman Rock. It's important to see influential and respected people challenge archaic ideas like gender conformity, because seeing people who look, act, and experience life the way you do in media promotes inclusivity and reinforces positive views of yourself in society. This ties back into body positivity, which was touched on earlier. The more we see realistic, average bodies celebrated in media, stores, our everyday lives, the more normalized it becomes, thus making us all more comfortable with the bodies we have. Through the use of social media platforms like TikTok and Instagram, young people have been able to be the representation that they never saw, inspiring others to do the same. You don't see more gay or trans teens today than you did in the past because it's a trend. You see it because we've created safe, non-judgmental spaces online where people can openly discuss their experiences as a person of color, their gender, their sexuality, and other aspects of their identity, eventually normalizing these conversations altogether. The Protect Asian Lives movements, the protests against anti-trans legislation, the body positivity lifestyle. All of these are major examples of ways in which my generation innovated itself into a people of advocacy, progression, and equality, really all through this. The ways in which we communicated these ideas in the first place. The way that I educated myself and others at 14 years old, and can now continue to do so on an even larger scale at 16. My hope for today is that after this, you'll view people like me as non-compliant, rather than weak, overly sensitive, or chronically online. And that you'll step outside of your own echo chamber and explore other perspectives, and ultimately innovate your own thinking into something even greater. Thank you.